Hey everyone, welcome back to this channel. Another installment of Revolutions. I wasn't gonna make a video this week, but because I've got too much work to do and in preparation for next week. But I thought I've got this nice plethora of records I've played this week, and I think they're worth sharing. And I'm probably going to talk a lot of crap about them, misinformed, but just know that I've enjoyed playing these records and that's what matters in the end. Sunday morning. I apologize for the lights. It's a very, very bright light. It's autumn here, and you've got this kind of like very intense luminosity in Melbourne. It's like, and as a result, I'm kind of whitewashed, and if you hold something white, it's very white. So I apologize for that, but I can't do anything about it. I've tried to go by the records there, and it just doesn't make any difference. I woke up this morning, put on coffee Sunday morning, chucked on the Goldberg Variations by Bach on Deutsche Grammophon, played by Willem Kempf. These pieces are very well known, being played by Glenn Gould, like he's really made them his own. But Willem Kempf, very impressionistic, very sort of uplifting, just lovely on Sunday morning, just takes you into another world. Goldberg was an organist in the court in Dresden, I think, and asked Bach to write something that he could play to the king so that the king could chill out, basically. Hence the Goldberg variation. But he was a top organist because it was not easy to play. So this is sublime music, really music for a lifetime. This is what I like to call this kind of music for life. You always rediscover it, and every time you hear it, you just go, "What was that?" Then I went into, because my classical is next to my modern classical stuff, and I pulled this out, which I hadn't for years and years, and really enjoyed it. Phase patterns, 4 organs, phase patterns, Steve Reich. 2 pieces on 4 organs, obviously, plus John Gibson on maracas on the first track. First track recorded at the Guggenheim Museum in 70, and the also 1970 at the Berkeley Museum of Art for phase patterns. Very minimalistic. I mean, really, like, it does what it says on the tin. Like, even the cover, like, that's what you hear. Like, it's just like waves of organ. If you like the sound of church organ, it's very repetitive. There's not really much happening, but it just keeps you guessing. I really love this. Very highly recommend. I mean, it's nothing groundbreaking. And since I'm talking about modern classical, yesterday I revisited Charlemagne Palestine, another New York minimalist. But maybe a lesser known than people like Lamont Young or Terry Riley or Steve Reich, but I think still very important. Charlemagne Palestine. This is strumming music, which he released in, I think, the 70s. I want to say, I can't remember exactly, but the CD is from 1995, but I'm prepared to bet this is from 1975. The foreword is by Joan LaBarbera, who is a very experimental vocalist, if you've never heard of Joan LaBarbera. And this is just basically piano chords repeated and repeated until something happens. It's like with Steve Reich. It's tension that keeps you waiting. Like this kind of building up. And there's very minimal changes as the piece goes through. Strumming music, very, very important album. And since I'm in experimental, gosh, these are all white looking album. I'm going to show it to you once, and then I'll remove it from the screen. 12, the very last album by Rishi Sakamoto, a masterpiece of absolute understated class, beautiful piano playing. Again, very impressionistic, very ambient, very delicate, really sublime music. It just keeps you wanting more. I played this last night, and I was It's very it's just enchanted music. It's his last album, and like Bowie with Black Star, it's just like a posthumous masterpiece, really. Um, Again, a very white album. This is Grosses Wasser by Cluster. I mean, I pulled this out because I went to see Michel Rotter not long ago, and Cluster Harmonia, and I think this is a vastly underrated record. This is such a good record, Grosses Wasser. I was listening to it the other day, and I can't remember which title it is. I think it's which song it is. I think it's the second or third song, and I thought, this is where Metallica got Nothing Else Matters. It's from one of these. It was this kind of melody going through the piece. I thought to myself that was amusing. From 1970, I mean, I want to say 75 or something like that. Around these ways. Dieter Möbius, Hans Joachim Rodelis, Cluster. Everybody should get to Cluster, in my opinion. This one I'm not going to talk about too much about. I revisited it because sometimes I talk shit about Ambient 1 because, there's nothing happening on this. Like, sometimes I just think, what's happening on Ambient 1? This is going to be really offensive to some people, but this is supposed to be the granddaddy of modern ambient music, Eno, who was lying in bed with an injury. A friend brought a harp record, like a Renaissance harp record, and he couldn't change the record, and that sort of evoked ideas that music could be like a painting that you look at sometimes, and sometimes you don't look at it, and all that sort of like supposed theory about what ambient music is meant to be. Well, I prefer Ambient 2 and Ambient 4. I've said it now. One O Tricks Point Never, fantastic album. Replica, I played this yesterday too. This is also an ambient masterpiece. It is made of sampling, largely. It's plunderphonics, very, very clever. Kind of also sort of industrial sounding, glitchy industrial sounding, but all made of samples. Daniel Lopatin from Brooklyn, he lives in Brooklyn, is absolute genius of his craft, of the sort of the idiom, really, I would say. But nobody talks about One O Tricks Point Never. Like in the VC, I never hear people talk about Aphex Twin and Boards in Canada and whatnot. But One O Tricks Point Never is almost never mentioned. Like Square Pusher is more mentioned than them. I think it's a shame. He's a genius. Enough said. I played this yesterday, which is a lovely, lovely ECM, under the radar kind of a thing. Suspended Step Off the Stalk by Eleni Karendrou, a Greek modern classical composer. Does mostly soundtracks. I came across her because, thanks to my friend Tamo in Germany, we talk every day, and he was just, I don't know, one day mentioning Eleni Karendrou, and I thought, well, I've never really investigated that music, so thank you, Tamo. I highly recommend this album. It is just, again, if you're into things like Steve Reich, if you're into things like, I would say, like, it's got a bit of a Nino Rota kind of a feel too, like, if you like Italian soundtracks, things like that. It's very tragic, very dramatic music, but with a modern classical tinge. Very nice. Sorry, my adjectives today are a bit off center. And okay, well, I want to show you a couple more CDs. I know I'm in CD mode. Now, this is fabulous. This is you will never know this because, well, they're from Melbourne. So this is a trio. They're called Pangolina. I don't know if it's going to show. The album is called Lava. And these girls, these women, were playing as a support band for Noi when I saw Noi about 3 weeks ago. And they made the three of them. You've got Helen Svoboda on double bass and vocals, Bonnie Stewart on drums, and Maria Mullis on drums. So when I saw them play with my friend Amos, we went to see them when we saw Michael Rotta. They had two of the women on drum, and Helen Svoboda on double bass. And it was just completely beguiling music. It's ambient, experimental music. It's not very easily accessible, obviously. It's got its own sort of degree of challenge when you listen to it. But it's so beautifully played, and it's so understated, and it's just full of class. This music is full of class. If this reaches other people than just the few people who were there, I would be so happy for people to go and listen to this on Bandcamp. I don't think this is on vinyl. I think there's just a CD at the moment. Pangolina. It's the best that new experimental music can actually bring. It's just a just very potent mix of ideas. And Ellen Svoboda, I've seen her live in a duo at jazz clubs before. She's a very gifted double bass player, but she's also a very gifted vocalist, and her vocals there, what she does with her voice is just, it's out of this world. And the last CD I've got there in front of me, which I've revisited, is this absolutely magnificent. Talk a bit about a vocalist that is otherworldly, Liz Fraser. This is the Cocteau Twins at the BBC sessions, which strips down much of their sound, because a lot of their sound relies on a lot of kind of studio trickery, wizardry. Like if you listen to Treasure or Heaven or Las Vegas, a lot of the sounds that they make, they can make them because they're in the studio. And in here, you've got a much more stripped down version of the Cocteau Twins, but it's got Wax and Wayne, for example, and Garlands and Sugar Hiccup, all these kind of like killer songs. Beatrix, Ivo, 50-50 Clown from Heaven and Las Vegas. It's like a greatest hits, but at the BBC. I took part in a really cool live stream with French vinyl addict Stanty Frederick from Belgium, Spectrum Archives, I think is his channel. There's Mike, English guy. I'm surely forgetting people. You can go on French vinyl addicts channel. I might put a link there, and you can check the stream if you want. It was very cool, and we just talked about all sorts of music, but we were talking about Placebo a little bit, and this is my favorite Placebo album. Placebo is a band from Belgium. Is a band from Belgium, led by a keyboardist called Marc Moulin, and they're a kind of a funky fusion band, very cult amongst beat diggers, people who are making beats, because the music is been sampled to death, and I think that's my favorite Placebo album out of all their albums. 1973. It's jazz funk. It's European jazz funk. If you've never heard that stuff, it's. I was talking about Cluster before, but I also played Zuckerzeit this week, which is my favorite Cluster album, probably. Zuckerzeit is it's the most melodic, most sort of lively Cluster. Like it's almost they're trying to make pop music, but in a sort of like very understated electronic. And I love this. Dieter Möbius and Hans-Joachim Rogelis, you can see them there. Just a beautiful album, 1974, originally on Brain. I played this. This week, I pulled out some African records. I pulled out this Ali Farka Touré, this Vieux Farka Touré and Khruangbin record. Ali, like I must say, look, Khruangbin I find a very, 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 very overrated band. I have this record by them and the pink one, and I don't think I would buy any more Khruangbin than this, because I just think that their formula has sort of worn, like the original idea is kind of fun, but it's just becomes a bit boring at the end. And this here is a good record, but I think if Vieux Fakature wasn't playing guitar on this, I wouldn't have bought this. I saw Vieux Fakature last year live, and he blew my mind. This is a beautiful record again, very, again, kind of funky, psychedelic, what you expect from Khruangbin, sorry if I don't want to offend people who love Khruangbin, but I think they're quite overrated in their own way. I mean, this is my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. A record I hadn't played for years and years and years, on my shelf for years, I'd forgotten I had it. CK Man, Funky Highlife. This is a super, super duper funky highlife. Well, as the title said, highlife from Ghana album. I mean, I wouldn't even know what an original of these is worth, but I mean, why bother with, I get people collect African music. It's got its own, aura of, it's something so, almost unattainable, because the records are often battered either in extreme heat, and nobody looked after them, and as a result the covers are mashed. Someone took a piss on them or something. I mean, it's really, I appreciate the art of collecting African records, but it's really not for me. I'm more like a reissue type of a guy when it comes to African music, or French pressings. They're also good. I highly recommend this. This just got me, on my feet dancing. It's a super, super, super cool record. And I don't know that, I've talked about this before, but I've had it for years and years. Ditto for Sorrow, Tears and Blood. I mean, this is a bit more serious in terms of music, but again, is an album that is maybe not so mentioned in the great fella canon. People talk more about things like Expensive Shit or Zombie or Fella and Ginger Baker, those kinds of records. But I think this record here is probably, if I was gonna go for a Fella record that sort of satisfies me every time, I would probably go for Sorrow, Tears and Blood, because it's got this political kind of like punch in the face. You can see that the whole thing is skewed against the regime in Nigeria, and how so politically charged it is. Okay, well, none of these records are in any order. It doesn't matter. Here is a fabulous revisit. When you've got lots and lots of records on your shelf, you can just go forever and ever finding records that you haven't played for a long time. Here's a case in point. I don't know if this record is well known to anyone here, but this is Finis Africa, a last discovery, the Essential Collection. This is a Spanish tribal ambient folk world band from that period, started in 1984 and it goes to 2001. So, but like it's from the 80s. Very indebted to John Hassel, obviously. This is a comp that came out in Japan, I believe. I got put onto this watching a video from Soul Jazz Records about, when did this, 2013, yeah. Well, when this came out, Soul Jazz Records, they made a video of top 5 records at the moment in the shop, and this was one of them. And so, I sort of, ordered it and played it tons at the time, but I haven't really heard it since. It's a monster record. It's so good. Play Radio Tarif at the first track and you'll be hooked onto it. I guarantee you. My good friend Amos, who lives around the corner from me, he's a Japanese jazz collector. He's a really good mate, and We hang out, we go to gigs together. He comes here, we play record. I go to his place, we play record. We have sessions. The best the VC can offer, really. I mean, when you've got people that you know in the flesh. And I met him because of this channel. Thanks to this channel. He went to Japan with his wife on a trip, and I said, if you find this record here on your travels, cheap, can you buy me a copy? Is it possible? And so he went and he found it cheap, and I'm really, really stoked because I was really looking for this record. So he brought that back for me from I don't think it was Tokyo. I think it's another place in Japan. I can't remember exactly where he got this from. But I've played it a few times this week, and he brought it for me last weekend. We went to see, I'll tell you about the gig in a second. We went to see a gig together, and he brought this to me. Thank you so much, Amos. This is a killer Japanese jazz fusion record with Gary Peacock on bass, but it's Sadao Watanabe, obviously the legendary Japanese guitar hero, Masabumi Kikuchi. It's just like the lineup is insane. It's called Paysage, which means in French landscapes, in case you wonder. Just a dope like jazz fusion record. Really super beautiful record. But then there was another record in the bag. He just goes, "Oh yeah, I brought you this." I opened the bag, and let me just take this out. And a record I never thought I'd own in any form, because in Australia we don't really get copies of these. Blackstone Legacy, first Japanese pressing. He bought this one in Tower Records, I think, in Shibuya. So this is the original inner. Gosh, that is it's an absolute tour de force. It's got a very sort of bitches brew kind of sound aesthetic. I mean, I don't think it's as influential or important as bitches brew, but the players, Woody Shaw on trumpets, Gary Bartz, Benny Maupin. I mean, it's just Ron Carter. It's Lenny White. This is an absolute killer record, and I'm so glad I have it in my jazz collection now. So thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate it. If you don't know Blackstone Legacy, go check out the record you can play it on YouTube. It's beautiful. Okay, I'll move on. Another record I could have put with the ambient section is this one. I played this yesterday morning. Christopher Hobbs, John Adams, Gavin Bryars. It's one of these obscure modern classical masterpieces. I mean, I think I'm going to say something maybe slightly controversial, but I think it's the best one, this one of the series. I've heard a lot of them. It's very understated, very sort of kind of ethereal music. And listen to John Adams' American Standard. It's just like it's the best of like American modern classical you could ever hope to hear. It's mind-blowing. Some American primitive music, Daniel Esht guitar. So Daniel Esht is it's a solo acoustic guitar player, in the same mold as John Fahey or Robbie Basho or Peter Walker. Plays American primitive. Sort of like this mix of bluegrass, classical music, folk music, just all mixed into a kind of it's a very forward-thinking type of music. And I know a friend, Dom, is a big fan of American primitive music. He has a lot of his records. So shout out to you, my friend. I revisited Felt, my favorite Niels Frahm record. This is a flyer from London. Felt. What's special about? I mean, Niels Fram is a pianist from Germany, a modern classical pianist, and what's really special about this record is that he did actually put felt inside the piano, and so you've got these muted notes. Such a beautiful ambient record. It really, like, it's perfect for the evening. Like, you put this like at like 9 o'clock at night. You put that, you lie on the couch. Oh my God, it's, it's a journey. It's a journey. 2011. I was talking about Boards of Canada before, and I played the Campfire Head phase this week, which is, I love this record. I think it's just as good as the first two. I mean, it's less regarded because, you've heard the formula before and you think, oh, well, they're not bringing anything new. But they are really, like Dave and Cowboy, for example, it is another side of Boards of Canada, in my opinion. And I think I almost prefer this to Girigatti. It's maybe more compact, more, but Into the Rainbow Vein, Peacock Tail. What? Just 10 out of 10. Amazing, amazing record. Now, I went with Amos to a gig last weekend. We went to, what was the place called? I can't remember the name of the venue now, but it's it's a very atypical venue. It's in Williamstown, which is like a kind of waterside, beachside kind of suburb of Melbourne. And there we went to see Niels Fram. Niels Fram. Tim Hecker. What am I saying? Yeah, Tim Hecker. Sorry. I was talking about Niels Fram a second ago. We went to see Tim Hecker. And this caused me to revisit my favorite Tim Hecker album, Rave Death 1972, which I still think is kind of a masterpiece in his own way. It's super drony, super dark and somber music. Really, it's an atmosphere of it's a world of its own. A couple more. I revisited Tonto's Expanding Headband. Amazing to record that. Malcolm Cecil and Robert Margouleff. Tonto, one of the first bands actually use the Moog and sort of like make it completely part of their sort of. As a Moog is very difficult to record with. I mean, it's a note by note. It's not really a polyphonic thing, so. Yeah, very, 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 very cool album. Highly recommend, a classic of the genre. Two more. Here's one that I bought months ago and I played and I needed to revisit more. It's Malim Mahmoud Gania and Pharoah Sanders. This is a mix between kind of North African music, so Gnawa, which is Moroccan transcendental Moroccan music, mixed with the avant-garde jazz stylings of Pharoah, and this record is real dynamite. It really, really is beautiful. It's very spiritual, like maybe spiritual jazz, but it's spiritual world music, jazz. Explosion. And finally, I revisited The Smile, because everybody's fucking banging on about the smile. I mean, it's the hype machine, And I'm not going to buy the new one because no, I've got this one. I bought this one when it came out, and honestly, for me personally, apart from maybe Free in the Knowledge, which just stops me in my tracks. The rest, it doesn't. I mean, I know it's a good album, you know, and if you're a young person and your exposure to Radiohead is that, and you've come to this and you've gone, this is fantastic, it's amazing, you know, 10 of 10. But for a non-casual Radiohead listener, that is me, I know the whole catalogue really, really well. When I hear this, you know, I want to go and fetch Kid A or In Rainbows, you know, like it's, you know, even the Moonshaped Pool is better than this, in my opinion. I mean, that's, but I'll still keep it because I like it, but I don't love it. If you don't like this, it's too bad. That's my opinion. Love you all. Leave me some comments, but don't insult me too much if possible. Yeah, I'm thinking of making a video about record collecting, and it could possibly be a live stream, because I think it's worth having a little discussion, dynamic discussion, as opposed to just me talking in front of the camera by myself. And I've got holidays coming up at the end of next week, so probably have time to do a little bit of live streaming. All right, take care.